Okay, you're on.
All right, today I want to talk about trusting in God. The God, more specifically, who sees you, the God who hears you. And I'm going to show you how trusting in God also applies to obedience, and how that can help you learn to control your bad thoughts. The God who sees, the God who hears. Let's talk about that today. I'm going to start off with Psalm 34:8. I did not realize this thing was so small. Give me a second. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Oh no, that's just flipping it upside down. That's not the right thing. Where's the plus sign?
Right where you are to the.
Oh, aha. Yeah. Now I can see. Okay, I'm looking at Psalm 34:8. In English, I don't know whose translation this is. Oh, taste and see that Yahweh is good. Blessed is the man that trusts in him. That trusts in him. I'm going to go through the Hebrew. The English is of no use to me in the scriptures anyway. Our first word is ta'amu in Hebrew. It is from the idea to taste, to try the flavor, to eat it, to perceive by the taste or flavor, metaphorically, to perceive mentally, right? So we're starting off with just take a little taste. You're talking to your kids. I know it's broccoli, but it's good for you and it tastes really good. Just take a little bite, right? That's exactly what's happening here. Just take a little nibble. Just touch your tongue to it. Just check it out. Don't be so scared of it. It won't hurt you. Just take a little taste. Not only that, reu, see, to see. Sorry, all of a sudden my throat is closing up. Oh, spilled that all over the floor. To see the face of a king. That's said, of course, of his ministers who are received in his presence. To see, to enjoy the light, to live. To see, in other words, to be taught in visions divinely brought, which is nonsensical. That didn't have anything to do with this word. To look at, to view, to behold, of course. But it's especially to be pleased with the sight as the eye lingers on objects of pleasure, and with them we feast our eyes. This is from that idea. You've probably seen it in some movie at some point in your life where the king sits there in his chair and he has his little scepter and someone is presented to him and I don't remember if it's forward or backwards, but if he leans it off in one direction, the person is allowed to come into his presence and speak with him. If he leaves it in the other one, they take him outside and kill him. Of course, if it's a Walt Disney movie, they probably just kick him out. But anyway, that's from that idea. That's the image behind the word. You're being allowed to, you've been given the nod. You can come into the presence of the king, if you will, and you can enjoy being in that presence. But it's going in kind of two different directions here. Your eyes get to linger on something of pleasure for you, and as it were, the king his eyes are lingering on something that is pleasurable to him. Of course, you can't apply everything that the word means to just willy-nilly to a verse, but you're going to see how tied in this really is. Then it says kitov. Ki is that or which, for, if. It's used in a lot of different ways. It's just a small word, not a lot of meaning and not a lot of importance either, though there are those who believe every single word means everything, which in Hebrew it does not. That's a Western idea. Even though it comes from the sages, they borrowed it from the West. Tov, good, physically good, as of a good, it's good fruit, it's good land. In other words, it's fertile. It's a good tree. It has a lot of fruit on it, if you will. Good gold, it would mean that it was pure. Not necessarily a lot of it, but that the gold that you do have is pure. That's good gold. It's a spoken of kindness and uprightness and goodness, to show kindness. It's also said, this is the word for beautiful. It's said of when God said, let there be light, and then it says he said it was good. He was saying it was beautiful, but it's more than that. It's perfect. It's said of a disposition, someone who's pleasant, someone who's agreeable. It's even said of people who are well off and prosperous. They're good. Doesn't mean they're a good person. They're just good. Hey, do you want something? Oh no, I'm good. Right? It's kind of that idea. But you got to know that this is more about beauty and perfection than it is anything else. And something that a lot of people don't know is it is the idea, the concept comes from the Jewish Bible. But there's something in the New Testament that surprises me, especially in the translation. Somebody came up to Yeshua and called him good master. And Yeshua said, why do you call me good? There is only one good. And the English translations added, and that is God. No, that's not how Jews talk. That's not what he was indicating. The good is the Torah. It is, by Jewish standards, based on the Bible, the only good that exists in this world. And the only way that we get the good in us is if we get the Torah in us. And if we don't get the Torah in us, you get the other stuff, right? The not so good. The downright evil, even. So there was only one good. They were not speaking of God. They were speaking of the Torah. It surprises me how very few people know that concept comes from the Bible. The next word is the proper name of God. And then we go on to Ashrei, which is happy. But this is one of those weird words if you're not used to Hebrew, in that it's in plural. You can't be happy. You have to be happies. There's not one thing that makes you happy. There are multiple things that make you happy. And if you're happy, there's multiple giggles, there's multiple goosebumps, there's multiple whatever. This thing is in plural. It's always in plural. There is no singular for this word. It's from the root that is to be straight, right, especially used of a straight way. Hence, also of what is upright. It's used to erect, something standing straight up and down, and that's what they mean by the upright. But that the idea here is not that you're standing up straight or something is standing upright. The uprightness here should be connected to the idea of a straight path, a straight way, a straight path. That's what it means to be upright in the Jewish world, based on the Bible, of course. Then it says Hagavar, which is the man, just the man. It's built on a word that means strength, but only in poetry, of course. It's the opposite of a woman. It's a male. It's really the word for male, not so much the word for man as it is for male. And I'm talking biblically here. And then you have Yehesheh, which is to flee. You're happy and now you're running away. What? Especially to take refuge. Oh, it's not of the fleeing from something, it's of the fleeing to something. To flee to somewhere for refuge, to trust in someone, especially and almost always used of God. It's from the root that is to make haste, to flee. It's in the negative, it's to flee with alarm, but it's not necessarily used that way. It's used just as much the other way, to flee, to rush to some place that you know is going to bring you gladness and joy and happiness and stuff like that, right? It's to flee. It's a fleeing to something. It's not fleeing from something unless it's in the negative. But it's hastily. It's from the idea, the root is from the idea of being in a hurry, to do it in haste, do it quickly. So I have one of my old-timey translations of this verse, what I call the Flowery Translation, which should not be studied. It's just, I don't know, to paint a bigger, a more flowery picture of what's being said. This should not be ever thought of as canonical, or anything along those lines. But anyway, I wrote, perceive by taste, stand in the presence of the King, with a capital K, seeing him in visions, let your eyes linger with pleasure upon him. Otherwise, how could you see him? You couldn't see him and live unless it was in a vision. For Yahweh, because we used his proper name, if you remember, he is upright, kind, fair, beautiful, pleasant, perfect, agreeable, prosperous, happy, distinguished, great, cheerful, merry, and perfect. I already said that. Upright, firm, strong, successful, prosperous, fortunate, and happy are those who hastily run to, take refuge, and trust in him with their heart and with their passionate mind. I don't think I covered that part of it. Where would the passion come from? There must have been some part of that in one of those words. I don't honestly off the top of my head. Yeah, because the emotions and passions of the mind are through the perception. That's right. I don't think I had that written down, but that is definitely part of the idea of that word. So, I think I went the wrong way. Yeah, I did. I'm just trying to, starting off with this idea of just try it. Just touch it to your tongue just a little bit. Just give it a chance, man. Just give it a chance, right? What are you scared of? I mean, I used to hear people, I guess I'm still hearing it from time to time. People say, "Oh, I could never be a Pentecostal because that scares me. Those people rolling around on the floor and they're wagging their tongues and shaking their tail and blah blah blah." How do you know it was scary if you never went there? I went there when I was a child and I didn't find it scary at all. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. They had great music. People liked to dance. I mean, gosh, it was like going to a hoedown. It was a lot of fun, right? And I never understood why people are so scared of that. I'm going to understand why somebody wouldn't stay in it, but I don't understand why anybody would be scared of it, right? But you hear the same thing. Oh, you got to watch out for those Jews. They'll make you live by God's law, and it'll be all legalistic and bondage. How would you know? You never even tasted it. You never even tried it. You never even looked into it. You just let somebody else make up your mind for you. Somebody else who had never seen it or tasted or touched it or felt it had no idea what it was like, right? And no idea the accusation they're making against God. God gave us his word. He said his word would never pass away. And he said it more than once, by the way. He said he would never change. His word would never change. And we're going off and saying, well, we don't live by that anymore. We live by grace. What? We don't have to live by that. That's all legalism and bondage. So God is the author of legalism and bondage? God is what's the word I'm looking for here? Uh, Vindictive. He's it's not the word. A sadistic. God's sadistic. God was mean to one group of people and nice to the other. I mean, if you think about it, first he was nice to the Jews and told them, live by these awful laws, live by this legalism and this bondage. And then when they didn't, he was like, okay, you're out. Let's go get some people, and I'm not going to give them a law so that we don't have to go through that again. Well, why didn't he do that with just with the Jews? I mean, none of that makes any sense. And so we're scared of it. We won't touch it. We won't just take a little taste. Come on, man. Take a little taste. You'll see that it's good. You'll see that it's perfect. You'll see that it's beautiful. That God is the good. Now, a lot of people have trouble understanding this, and I've had trouble finding a way to explain it. But the Torah is God. The Torah was in the beginning. God was in the beginning. The Torah is God, right? Even the New Testament says something like that. In the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God, and God was the Word. What do you think we're talking about? So in the beginning was the good. And the good was with God, and God is the good. I'm telling you, that translation is not wrong. Not exactly right, but it's not wrong either. God is the good. God is the Torah. He is a living, breathing, eternal Torah. And whatever came out of his mouth is perfect and pure and holy and will never be otherwise. And it was never legalistic. There is bondage because it requires servitude. And that's by choice. He doesn't come and take you and make you his servant. You have to want to be his servant. There's a difference between living out God's law just because that's what Jews do. Living out God's law because, well, I was a Christian, but now I know that stuff's the truth, so I better go do that. There's a difference between that and living out the law because you know the law is good, perfect, holy, and pure. You know that it is good. You have at some point had at least a taste, and you want more. I feel like I've been guzzling it down for a number of years now, and I can't get enough. It's really good. It's really, really good. And happy is the person who trusts in God. How do you trust God? You do what he says, not because you have to, because you do it because you know that's what you should be doing. That's what's good for you. I mean, you don't go out and commit all kinds of crimes. Why? I mean, some people do, but I'm assuming the people listening to me right now either used to or don't or never have. And why do you do that? Well, because you know there's a better way to live. You know there's a better way to live than go in and out of jail cells and in and out of police cars and in and out of handcuffs. You know there's a better way to live, right? So you do it because you know it's good for you. You don't actually have to. You can go to jail, if you so choose, right? This thing is rolling so fast, I'm going right past the stuff I'm looking for. Let me try to slow it down here. Oh, that's what's wrong. I'm on the wrong one. I got to click this little thingy here. Here we go. Now I got to do the plus sign again. Ooh, okay, that's kind of big. I want to move over to Proverbs 16:3. Again, I don't know whose translation is, just some English translation I got. Commit your works to Yahweh, and your thoughts shall be established. Listen to me carefully here. Commit your works, it's legalism and bondage. I don't know why I'm so crazy. I don't know why I have all these bad thoughts. I can't think about the good. Commit your works to Yahweh, and your thoughts, this is a command, shall be established. You want to know how to get over all of this thinking about the bad stuff all the time? Right here's the answer. I told you, every question you ever had, the answer's right here in this book. We start off with gold. Gold! No. That's the word we would say commit, right? That's to roll as stones. To roll off of something or away, to roll away from anyone. If it's followed by the word L, which it happens to be, it is to transfer what is rolled away from oneself to another. To transfer what is rolled away from oneself to another. Now, that only applies if the word goal is followed by L. And it is. So this applies to this verse. That is the rule of grammar here. To transfer what is rolled away from oneself to another. The power of this root is expressed by imitating the noise of a globe or other round body rolled forward quickly. Back to that. Make haste. Make that thing roll fast. Throw that bowling ball as fast and hard as you can. Get that thing spinning, baby. It is applied, therefore, to derivatives. This is our first derivative, to things that are round, globular, or rolling, as a wheel, or as a whirlwind. I don't know how they get rolling out of a whirlwind, but that's what it says. B, to to heavy things. I thought, well, that's a funny way to spell heave. To heavy things, such as would be rolled and not carried. These things are so heavy, they're so weighty, you can't pick them up, you just got to roll them. Or C, our third derivative, of waves of water rolling themselves onward. So you got that rolling motion of the waves just moving on and on and on. Are you starting to get an idea here? It's this word that we have as commit. Yeah, they said commit your works. This is rolling your works. Maybe they're heavy and they're hard to make roll. Maybe they're not so heavy. Speed it up. Get them going as quick as you possibly can. And it's, where would you roll it to? Well, the next word is the proper name of God. You're rolling this to God. Of course, we already know what we're rolling. Ma'asecha. It's from asa. It's a noun of action of the verb asa. I just said that. That which anyone makes or does. A deed. We can't do that. That's legalism and bondage. An action. Work, which anyone produces. The things which God made, those were his works. The works with his hands, the works of his hands. Metaphorically, also of the fruit of anything, what is produced by labor, property, goods. So, if you're a carpet layer, what are your works? People get carpet in their house. If you're a carpenter, what are your works? Well, maybe somebody gets a house. Maybe they get a new porch. Maybe they get an addition to their old house. Who knows, right? You build things. That's your works. The root is to labor, to work about anything, to make, to produce by labor, to manufacture, to fabricate. Does that sound like you living on grace and not by works to you? I hope it doesn't, because that's not what's being said here. This is talking about a physical action. And you're being told to roll this physical action to God. So if you do your work half-heartedly, if you take corners and cut corners, I should say, and try to, stuff as much of that change in your pocket as you possibly can, because you know that, your customer doesn't realize that you've just run, you charged him so much money for the materials, and you turned out you had, more than half. You bought twice as much as you needed, so you just take it home and use it, right? Is that something you would do to God? Well, no, because you get caught, right? But with dumb customer, this is telling you to roll your works to God, your works, your deeds. And so, in a human sense, I should say, that's the works that you do, right? But what are we talking about? We're in the Bible, right? What are your works when you're speaking of the Bible? Oh, it's what? Oh, it's I go to synagogue on Saturday. I go to church on Sunday. I go to shrine on whenever they do that. I have no idea. I used to think I know. I think I used to know that. Do have a master's degree in Middle Eastern history. I did study a lot of those things, but I don't remember. I don't know if it ever came up, to tell you the truth, what day they do their thing. I don't really know. But you get the idea here, right? Oh, it's showing up, paying giving them a little money every once in a while, or maybe you think you should give it every time you walk in the door, or every time you get paid. That's not the point. Or, well, I go and I feed the homeless on, one day a year to make myself feel better. I mean, to serve God. Your works are found in the Torah. Your works are both positive and negative. They are both actionary and non-actionary. You have your works are don't lie, don't kill, don't steal. These are your works. And quite literally here, if your neighbor, his ox fell off in the ditch, but you guys don't get along, your works are to go help that neighbor get that ox out of that ditch. And no, that is not legalism. That's not bondage. That's basic human kindness. Your works are all founded on basic human kindness, on politeness, on even to the point of charity. These are the works that are found in the Torah. And if you don't know that, well, you've probably not read it. Because even as bad as some of that English translation is, you still should get that out of it. You roll those works. Okay. I thought I've missed a word here. I thought I'd come to the end, but I haven't. So our next word, and shall be established. Ve'yikinu. To stand upright, to exist, to be. So this is, I'm guessing from the word yiyeh. So as has been an and. Okay. Established, to be firm, immovable. Our next word, machshevotecha, your thoughts, or thoughts of you, thoughts your, because they say it in the right, they say it the right way, we say it the wrong way. And I say that because basically English is the only one that says we put our sentences together backwards. Everybody else does it the other way. Well, almost everybody else. That which anyone meditates, your thoughts. Do you realize you're meditating? When you get angry with somebody and you just talk. Well, he said, well, she said, well, they said, well, they did this, they did that, they said this, and I said that, and then they said that, and on and on and on. You realize you're meditating? Because we think of meditating as om, right? No, whatever you're thinking about. Oh my gosh, got to get up for work in the morning, and I got to get this done, and I got to get that done, and I better put this over there, and I better put that over there, so I don't forget it, and blah blah blah. You're meditating. So there's different levels of meditation, right? There's good meditation, and obviously there's bad meditation. But when you can't get your mind off of something, you're meditating. This is your purposes, your plots. If you're plotting something, oh, I'm going to get that guy or whatever, that's a meditation. What about a counsel? If you're thinking about, well, I got to say something to so and so, and I got to think about, what's the right way to say this? What's the right way to approach it? How do I get this person to understand? You're meditating. There's not a difference between thinking and meditating. There is a difference between computing and meditating. If you're trying to figure something out, you're still meditating. But if you're, I don't know. I guess in the end, I don't really think there is an end. It's from the root hashav, which is to think. What does that mean? To meditate. To think is to meditate. So I think it helps us to understand what is going on in our head if we know that we're meditating. What are you meditating on? Are you meditating on negative stuff? Are you meditating on, woe is me, I don't have a place to live, I don't have food to eat, I don't have clothes to wear? And doesn't that seem like something that's pretty serious, right? But what's going to happen to you if all you do is sit around and think about that? All you do is sit around meditating on that. The primary idea seems to be that of computing, reckoning, to think, to purpose, to do something. To do something. And why would they get that idea from this word? Because if you think on something long enough, you're going to act upon it. One thing that all serial killers have in common is that they contemplated what it would be like to kill somebody for a very long time. They meditated on it. They obsessed. Well, that's what meditation is, or at least what it can become. I kept saying come be. I was trying to say become. That's the one thing they all have in common. Well, it's the one thing everybody has in common. Whatever we meditate on, we're going to act on that. So if we're sitting here thinking about how mad we are at somebody else, what is our action? It's anger. We'll wind up, yelling at our spouse when we're mad at somebody else. If we're meditating on how awful our life is, what are we going to do? Probably something that's going to make it worse. In fact, absolutely something that's going to make it worse. And we think about God's word. And in this place, we're not really being told to think about God's word. We're told to be thinking about the works. So here's my flowery little translation. Transfer from yourself the quickly moving, crushing waves of a loud whirlwind of work and deeds which you produce by labor and fabricate with your hands unto Yahweh. And in the way we think, our meditations, purposes, and counsels will come to exist from firm and upright in us. And I have a dumb note from back when I was still following the Christian thing. Think about that a second. Oops, pushing the wrong button again. There we go. Have you ever had trouble with that? You just keep going back and thinking about the same thing and thinking about the same thing and thinking, no matter what you try to do, okay, I'm going to stop thinking about how mad I am at Joe Schmo. I'm going to go over here and think about how good God is, and he's wonderful and he's awesome. And dang it, Joe shouldn't have said that. He said, and okay, I caught myself. Oh, I'm going to think about God. I'm going to think about God. I'm going to think about God. Joe just made me so mad, right? I used to do that all the time. I mean, all the time. I'm over here. I'd catch myself, and so I start trying to think about God. Back to Joe. Catch myself, back to Joe. Catch myself, back to Joe. Why? Because I was doing the wrong thing. I was trying to change what I was thinking about. And if you're rolling your works to God, which is idiomatic for if you're doing everything as unto God, if you're rolling your works, the 613 laws, not all that stuff that was added to it, God's laws. God's the one who gave us the works. And all of the works that were added by man, it's all fine and good. If you want to do that, just go right ahead. But you'll be so busy doing that stuff that you won't be doing God's work. And guess what won't happen to your head? And it's the same way if you're approaching this like a Christian, you think somehow you can control this mind. You'll lose, because God set the law right here. Well, not right here, but this guy's talking about what he understood from the law. But God set the law, just like he set the law of gravity, like he set the law of any other what we would call a natural law, any other law of physics. God set all that stuff in motion a long, long time ago. And here somebody caught on to that and said, look, if you want to control your head, if you want to get all that ugliness out of your mind, if you want to quit meditating on all the stuff that brings you into that deep, dark pit, here's what you do. You don't try to control your mind. You roll your works. You do everything that God says to do in his word as unto God. In other words, if you're going to do your job this way before, because it's God, then that's the way you ought to be doing it. Even if if I was a little dishonest, you get it? It's making the best sacrifice and not giving the leftovers to God and wondering why God was not happy with it, right? It's because it's an idiom. spoken. That's why they're using this word. That's why it's about rolling downhill and nobody understands it. It's just an idiom. They're trying to get you to understand that you take God's works. What are his works? They're right there in the law. If you see somebody that needs clothing, you give them clothing. If you see somebody that needs food, you see if you can help them get some food. If you see a widow and you do something to try to help that widow. We as an organization we don't sponsor, we send money to an organization that helps widows. We send money to an organization that helps the fatherless. What's that thing called? What's that called when kids live in a place and they don't? Orphanage. An orphanage. And yes, you can send money, but this is more. It's doing the works. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. Send the money. Don't send your rent check. That's dumb. It's not what God did not ask us to send our rent check to help somebody else out. We should be better stewards of our own money, right? And we should be giving of our abundance. And maybe we don't have a great deal of abundance, but it needs to come from your abundance. So I hope you understand that. You're not supposed to not pay your bills to help somebody else. That's you do not have the ability to help them financially if you're doing that, and you're not following God's law, because part of his law is that we have to be good stewards of that which he has given us. And if you have a job, you have a paycheck, God has given that to you. So if we commit our works to God, if we get busy doing the do's and not doing the don'ts, this thing will come under control. This thing will stop meditating on all that bad stuff. There's the secret right there. All right, how much time? I'm going to have to really rush through the last one to tie it all together. My last one is Psalm 34:15. The eyes of Yahweh are upon the righteous, and his ears hear their cry. I'm guessing. I can't see most of it over here for some reason. I can see what I need to see now. So it starts Ane. That's eyes in plural. There's no big secrets here. Then we have the proper name of God. Then we have El Zadikim. Zadak, you know the word, right? Righteousness. Just, righteous, used of a judge or a king. That would be somebody who is fair regardless of who he's dealing with. Never giving favoritism to somebody just because they're related or just because they're famous or just because they're rich or something like that. A righteous judge would never do that, and no one who ever does that can be running around calling himself or people thinking of as a righteous judge. He's not righteous, and he shouldn't be a judge. Anyway, just and righteous, used of judges and kings, who maintains the right and dispenses justice. Hence used very often of God as being a just judge, both in punishing and in rewarding. One who has a just cause, that's nonsensical Western nonsense. Let's skip over that idea. One who speaks what is right and true. Because generally the thought here is that if you're speaking what is right and true, you're living what is right and true. But if you're living one way, like Gavin Newsom, going off to parties without mask on his face and having all the fun he wants while he's forcing all of his population not to. If you're like that, no. You're not just. You don't have a just cause, no matter if it's climate change or not. One who speaks what is right and true. Just this is the idea of you live. You're speaking it because that's what you live. You're not a politician. Let's just put it that way. No, not all politicians are bad, but most of them are. Just towards other men, obedient to the laws of God. Did you hear that? That's in there. Obedient to the laws of God. hence upright, honest, virtuous, and pious. And one thing that has become lost over the last 200 years is that when people spoke of someone being pious, this came from the root word, believe, that would be a Greek word, that meant holy, that meant uh, follower of God's law. So that's gotten lost in this word pious because we think of some guy in a robe walking around going, om, correct. No, that's not pious. Pious is to live according to God's law. It's an old English word that was used to describe somebody who lived according to God's law. That's gotten lost over the last 200 years. So people don't realize that when they're looking at something that was written in the 1800s. They don't realize that that's what they meant by pious. So when we talk about the righteous, we are talking it only, because this is biblical, right? This isn't, other people can say what they want, but this is based on what's biblical. And what's biblical is that only those who live according to God's law are righteous. The Bible never spoke of somebody being righteous who did not live according to God's law. That did not happen. Even the New Testament letters do the same thing. They only speak of the righteous as those who followed God's law. Now, I know the translation says a lot of different things, but the Greek text doesn't. The Greek text is completely in line with Hebrew thought because it was written by Jewish rabbis in the Hebrew language originally. And so it did not stray from the Jewish thought. Unfortunately, translators have perverted that beyond belief, and anybody can be right. A person can be righteous just by saying, Jesus, forgive me for all my sins and come into my heart. And I don't even, I don't know if I ever knew that. They call it the 8-second prayer. I don't think I ever really knew it, but it's something along those lines. And they think from that point on, they're going to heaven. They're righteous. They got nothing to worry about. Wow. Wow. That one may be worse than than convincing the Christians are around saying the most brilliant thing and most evil thing the devil ever did was convince everybody that he didn't exist. And biblically speaking, he doesn't. Because they took a verb and they capitalized the first letter of the verb and turned a verb into a proper noun. Hasatan, the resistance, Satan being the word for resistance, you capitalize the S all of a sudden. Now you have the Satan instead of the resistance. So something got invented there, and Christians have no idea. So an entity that does not exist did convinced everyone that it didn't exist, and somehow that was both the most brilliant and most evil thing that non-existent entity ever did. I don't know. That's crazy. Let's get back on the idea of righteousness. Only those in the Jewish Bible, which Christians call the Old Testament, and in the New Testament, all of them are in complete agreement, if translated properly, that only those who live according to God's law can be called the righteous. And it's very important that we understand this, because that's exactly what this is saying, what the meaning of this word means. We can't get away from that. Then it says, ve'aznav, and his ears. It's from the root azan, to be sharp, acute, pointed. Think about a pointy-eared dog. When they hear something, their ears poke up, start doing that thing or whatever. This is the picture behind this word, because it's listening. Then we have El Shavatan, their cry, outcry, cry for help and distress. It's from the root shavah, which is to be ample, broad, hence to be rich, wealthy, to be freed from danger. Cry. The signification of ample space is in Hebrew, is applied to liberty, deliverance from dangers and distresses. as on the other hand, narrowness of space is frequently used of distresses and danger. This is from the idea of prison because way, way, way back, 5,000 years and more ago, I don't know how far it comes this way, maybe 3,000 years ago, but I think you're closer to the 4 and 5,000 year mark, where this was really something that they did. They would take a dried up cistern, which is a hole that was dug in the ground so that when it rained, it filled up with water, and then they would have water during the dry months, right? And it's what you think of. It looks more like a well because it's just a big round hole that's dug straight down, but it wasn't a well; it was a cistern. And they in a well, say the well dries up. Well, when it rains, that well will still fill up, or maybe not fill up, but it'll catch a lot of water, right? And so when those things dried up and you did something wrong, the elders in your little town would drop you down in that dried up cistern or that dried up well. And the deeper you went, the more narrow it got. They didn't dig them out and put bricks in them and stuff like that back then. They just dug as far down as they could, so it would just V down toward the bottom. And so if you were in a lot of trouble, they didn't just throw you down there. Sometimes you were thrown down with your hands above your head. Other times you were thrown down with your hands to the side. But the more wiggling you did either way, the more squished you were going to get because the thing was deeper than you were tall. And so you would just get more and more squished. And the more squished you get, the harder it's going to be to breathe. And while you're down there, they would put a big old stone right over the top of that hole. So you were in complete darkness. Absolute darkness. And the only way you got fed or had anything to drink is somebody who cared about you came and gave you some food. Because when you were in trouble and thrown in that pit, you weren't their problem. You were your family's problem. Or, some person who just, some bleeding heart liberal who felt like you should be fed. I would have been one of those. I don't want anyone to starve. I mean, come on. But this is rough. It was dark, and so that idea of the narrowness comes into play here. It's the opposite of the other. So now, once you're sentenced, to say you were there for 3 days, once your sentence is over, they pull the stone off and reach down, grab your arms, and pull you out. Well, they didn't, not the people who put you in there. Somebody in your family, somebody you cared about probably had to do that, or you had to find your own way out. It was rough back then. They didn't have all of this. Somebody killed somebody, so now they get 3 meals a day and cable and free internet. No, it wasn't like that back then. So you get out, somebody reaches down, somebody who cares about you, and they reach down, and they pull you out. Oh, by the way, that was your bathroom. And that was everybody's bathroom who went before you. So what do you think your feet were in the whole time? They're pulling you out, and it's probably gotten all over you. And now it's getting all over the person who's happened to pull you out of this place. And so they pull you out, and when you get out, you're not going to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. That ain't going to happen if you've been there 3 days. Everything's going to be asleep. So they're going to have to hold you up until you can walk on your own. So all this mud and muck, and it's all over them as well. They must care a lot to be helping you out. Otherwise, you're crawling at best. But all of a sudden, there's the light of the whole world when that stone is rolled away. And there's the opulence of the whole world. You're not compressed in anymore. And so that's where this idea of the ample space and the deliverance from the dangers and the distresses and the riches and the wealth, because you got the whole world when you've been freed. That's a pretty powerful word. So here's my Flowery Translation. Well, I'm pushing it. The eyes of Yahweh are turned towards the just, righteous, honest, virtuous, pious, those who are obedient to the Torah. His ears are pricked up and intently focused and turned towards their distress. from the compressed pits from which their cries are heard. How could you not trust in God? Well, if you don't live by his law, you should. There's nothing to trust, right? You live by God's law, and you know that God is like that his ears are perked up. He is paying very, very close attention to you. If you're living by his law, he is focused on you. He is listening to your cry. And if he's heard your cry, then you should very well know that he is going to respond to that cry. Will it be what you asked for? Maybe yes, maybe no. But he will respond, and it will be the right response. You know, sometimes you say, Mommy, when you're 5 years old, I don't want that dentist to pull that tooth out. But Mommy knows that you have to have that tooth pulled out, right? You get what I'm saying. Sometimes the bad stuff we don't like, is going to happen because it's what's best for us. God knows, and God loves us, and he cares for us, the righteous, the righteous, the righteous. If you're not righteous, if you're not living according to God's law, you have something to worry about. There's no hope that you're ever going to get your thoughts under control. But if, on the other hand, you live according to God's law, those thoughts will change. Just taste it, and you'll see. Not only is God the good, you can trust him if you live according to his law. Shalom v'shalom.
The blessing, Be'ivrit. Yevarecha Yahweh v'yish merecha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha v'hunecha. Yisa Yahweh panai v'lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness and favor and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.